Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm Will Shick, and I'm excited to be here today to get to talk to you guys and just do some cool painting on Angela, who's another one of our cool releases that's coming in January. It's cold here, that's why I keep saying cool. And I'm also in my nice little vest, but I do have my Avengers gear on. You know, I'm still rocking the style here. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into getting some paint on this Angela. I've already started a little bit on this character. I've got the skin base down and ready to go, just to kind of speed things up because we're only going to get one day with her. And next week we're going to be doing something a little special just for the fun of it. So with that, let's just dive off this camera and jump into our Angela cam. Pow! There we go. So like I mentioned, I already spent some time working on the flesh tones and the skins because today I really wanted to be able to focus in on doing the metallics. So Angela is a character that has a whole heck of a lot of golds and silvers going on her armor. She's festooned with metallosity, as Dallas would say. So I just wanted to take a little extra time and go through that process with you all. And I'll walk you through how I approach different golds and silvers and stuff and give you an idea of just my techniques, and maybe that'll help you all out. Inspire you to try some different things, or maybe teach you something that you've never done before. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my base gold, and this is going to be Dwarven Gold from Scale. This is a really nice kind of lustrous, deep gold. It's not quite as bright as some of their other colors, such as Elven Gold or the Peridot Gold. Those make great highlights to this. This is more of just a nice firm base. You can start with something darker if you want. I'm going for something really rich, and we want something kind of shiny, but we're also going to do a special wash to give it a little bit of that lived in feel, because obviously Angela spends all of her time hanging out in her battle armor. So we want to make sure that it has kind of that rich antique feel and the not fresh off the assembly line feel, because I doubt that she spends a whole lot of time polishing her armor. She spends more time just bringing axe to face on fools. So we're just going to get going. Obviously, a lot of these areas are gold, so we're just going to start laying stuff in. So we'll start with the helmet here, being careful not to hit our face and muss up the work we did there. So we're just going to take a little bit of time. We've got our secondary brush as well if we need to come back in and clean it up. So I've always really liked painting true metallics. You can definitely stretch your skills and get some really awesome effects with non-metallics. It's a very artsy thing to do, and it's gaining a lot of popularity, I've noticed, over the last couple of years, as people have picked up more tutorials and more techniques for doing it. You can get some really awesome results. But for me, nothing really kind of tops the fun and enjoyment I get out of painting true metallics. And of course, these kind of give a much more realistic appearance on the tabletop because metals are going to shine in different ways. We're going to help that out. But if you're just starting out, or you're kind of a new painter as well, there's no more bigger joy than kind of diving in and getting to do metallics on a character, because you can literally just go with one base coat, a little bit of a wash, maybe a dry brush highlight if you want to, but the metal flake that's in the paint itself is going to do a lot of the work for you. And so this can be a really fun and easy way to build some confidence, build some brush control, start learning kind of how to apply paints between the different techniques, dry brushes, washes, layer highlights, all that stuff. You can really kind of knock out some good results very quickly. And so when I was beginning to paint, metals were always my favorite because they were kind of, they felt like a cheat. They felt really short, and I was still like really liking what I got. And as I got further into painting, I began to play with them a bit more. I started using more washes, more inks, toning them, highlighting them in all different kinds of ways. And it's still been a fun journey to kind of go on and figure out. But you can see, like right there already, if you just wanted to call that single layer of base coat good, it's got some really nice sheen. It's got some great definition to it. You could just be done with it at this point. We're, of course, not going to be. We're going to keep going. We're going to have some fun. We're going to take these metals to the next level. And if there's a guy that I know who loves to talk about metallosity and all the ways to treat metallics, it is Dallas Kemp. And I have no doubt he'll be doing some really fun stuff on his stream on Thursday, taking things in a bit of a different direction. You never know what he's going to concoct up or what suggestion he's going to take from the audience. And you all on the stream who are watching, we always try to have fun and do some fun stuff. But today we just really want to take this Angela and do a pretty traditional approach so that you can kind of get a feel for how when you get your Angelas, maybe some ways to inspire that classic comic book look from her appearances in As Guardians of the Galaxy, which is what this sculpt is heavily based on. There are a couple of different versions of Angela, her entrance into the Marvel Universe when the 10th realm was revealed, and she caused all a bunch of problems for Odin and Loki and Thor. And she became Asgard's assassin. She went out on her own. She kind of forsook everybody. The 10th realm, full of some pretty nasty history between them and Odin. Of course, that led to the War of the Realms and their inclusion into Malekith's Council of Evil. Can't remember what the actual term was, but that was basically it. They weren't very nice. So just a fun storied character, one that we were really excited to bring to the tabletop, and a character that we felt was a really awesome inclusion because of her kind of dual affiliation nature based on where Marvel has taken her since her introduction to the universe. When she made the jump and the 10th realm was revealed, and her relationship to Thor and Loki and Odin was revealed as Odin's firstborn, who was thought dead, stolen away by the angels of Heaven, the 10th realm. Just a crazy, so melodramatic, it's fantastic. But she's now formed her own group, or had formed her own group. I suppose that group is disbanded now that the War of the Realms is over. She formed the Asgardians of the Galaxy, which kind of gave us the license to be able to stick around with the regular Guardians of the Galaxy. She's also been a Guardians of the Galaxy member, which is why I think she got the idea to form the Asgardians of the Galaxy. And so it was fun to be able to do her in both Asgard and Guardians. And just kind of provide a character that I think is really unique in terms of what the Guardians are used to as a 5-threat powerhouse, as opposed to, kind of the biggest hitters they have being Glass Cannon Gamora, deadliest woman in the galaxy. You can definitely get some work done, but it has to be a little careful and sneaky as she does it, per her assassin roots. And then, of course, you have Ronan, who does pal around with the Guardians from time to time. He can add some extra offensive beating power, but when it comes down to it, Angela is the preeminent Guardians of the Galaxy beat stick. We wanted to kind of riff off the idea of her being Asgardian's assassin and her as an adventurer and a monster hunter. So whereas Thor is all about kind of brawling and just punching people in the face, Angela is very quick, very speedy, and her hitting power is definitely improved when she goes after the big guys. So she really loves to take on the big monsters, and we wanted to really play that up when it came to her game rules and her feel, to create something that was both different and yet on the same level, if not maybe just a little bit more desirable in certain situations than Thor, given that she is the firstborn of Asgard and has been trained by the angels. She also had a fun stint taking over Hela's role as the queen and goddess of the dead, ruling in Niflheim. So just a wild character. I love all of the crazy stories that she's been a part of, and kind of that extra epic like zaniness that comes along with her, from reclaiming her lover Sarah from the land of the dead, which caused her to become the queen of the dead and overthrow Hela, to forming the Asgardians of the Galaxy. It's all done for love. Like, really, when it all comes down to it, she does everything for love. But in the game itself, she does everything to take down the big monster. She is the monster killer. That was kind of our initial note to playtesters and stuff. So we started putting her through her paces and a lot of development on her. It was a fun challenge to say, okay, if we didn't want a replacement for Thor. We wanted Thor to stand on his own merits and have his own place. But then we also didn't want to water down Angela in any way, as she is such a powerful character in her own right. So we kind of differentiated the two different halves. and what they wanted to do, where they excelled, where they maybe don't excel quite as much. And I'm really happy with where we were able to take both of these characters. And it's a lot of fun to watch Dallas Kemp play both of them on the table with his Asgardians because he loves playing the big, big, scary characters. He's all about high threat, small teams, and just, wrecking face with them. So he definitely put the dual Angela Thor combos to the test internally. We had plenty of other folks out there in playtest land who did the same. But yeah, character whose appearance has been a little delayed, a little murky due to this year's shenanigans. We'll call them shenanigans. Because originally this lady was supposed to be out before the X-Men, but we, of course, had 2020 happen. And as all of us, I think, are painfully aware at this point, 2020 does not give one S about your plans. I always tell my kids that S stands for shake. It does not give one shake about your plans. And so here's where we wound up. Angela, She-Hulk, and the Enchantress will all be coming out the start of next year, which is like 2-3 short weeks away, 2.5 short weeks away. I don't even know anymore. Time's meaningless. Really, really close at this point. Really, really close. I'm excited for everyone to kind of be able to get their hands on this character and see what she brings to the table. Get some good Enchantress action going on. Flesh out some of those meaner, badder teams. The character who has an amazing storied history, and Dallas did such a great job painting up in the last couple of his transmission lives. I loved the heavy metal concert rock look that he gave her. It was fantastic. And quite fitting to that character's history and just kind of the way she interacts, She always pines after Thor and often makes his life miserable because he doesn't quite share her affections. And that has led her to do some questionable things. She, of course, also has a bit of a power streak. Who doesn't? It's another really exciting character. It was really fun to realize on the tabletop in terms of what she was bringing to everything. How do you do? The mental characters are always kind of interesting, whether they're highly mystical or highly manipulative, controlling. Like, what does that mean to the game, and how do you balance that out with everything else that's going on? So it was a fun challenge and a really good joy to kind of be a part of and see her get actualized on the tabletop as well, along with her other compatriots. I'm sure Josh will be posting a lot more info on those characters and those releases. I know he just dropped some pretty great info and the card for She-Hulk. We talked a little bit on the website. There was an article that went up about one of the She-Hulk tactic cards that comes in the box. Special delivery, which was a really fun one to work on, both art-wise, card-wise. And is one of the defining cards for that A-Force team. Much like Mothership or some of the other cards in certain affiliations can be. Cosmic Invigoration, Dark Reign. And one of the things we always look at when we're building out affiliations is what are kind of some of the tactic cards that help define them, that make that choice really meaningful and interesting over some others, because obviously, you can put She-Hulk in a lot of different teams. You don't have to use A-Force. There are times where maybe that might not feel like the best fit, but by having that additional tactic card kind of love and being able to play with that stuff, we can really affect a lot of interesting things when it comes to compositions and what you're trying to do and what you want to do and why you're taking certain characters over others. So it's a very fun puzzle to put together, and then You get to kind of unleash it on the playtesters, and then it comes out to all of you. And everybody gets to unlock it and figure things out and discover all these fun tricks and innovate on what we've seen. It's part of the joy and excitement of doing anything like this. You can never quite be sure what innovation's coming your way. And then you watch its people obviously figure out new ways and tricks to deal with whatever innovations happened before. A couple folks in the chat talking about how they just take characters they like and roll some dice. Man, that's a great way to play. It's certainly my favorite. I don't typically worry too much in 95% of my games about what I'm taking and why. It's who I'm taking because I want to. And to me, part of the fun of the game is just figuring out how to get the best use out of it on the tabletop. And granted, you know, if you're looking for that big win ratio, the good WL ratio, or you're going to an event with folks who are a little differently minded, then yeah, it might not be the best approach. I'm not going to say that it works every time, but nothing ever does. You know, much like wearing jeans to a black tie event. If you're going to go to the black tie event, you better wear the black tie and everything else that goes along with it. Because I learned it's not just a black tie. There's a whole set of rules to that whole like thing. Black tie, white tie. So many steps, so many rules. All right, so I think we might be good on our golds now. I know the Blades of Ichor have some gold on them, but I'm probably going to ignore them for right now. But let's just take a really quick look at our reference and see what we got going on here. I love the Blades of Ichor because they're so weird. Like, what exactly are they? Nobody's quite sure. Everybody treats them a little different. The blades themselves are gold and most of this stuff that I'm looking at, so we're going to do that. So let's get that down really quick. Let's shift my brush from my smaller brush to my bigger brush because I got a lot more area to cover here. But I remember talking to Pagani about this character, and he was asking some question. He's like, okay, so what are the Blades of Ichor? And I'm like, well, they're like a bow. So they're a ranged weapon, but she also can split them into axes. And every once in a while she just throws them. Like, you know, they're whatever, they're Ichor. They're Ichor. They're whatever she needs them to be at the time. And he kind of just looked at me and said, I'll believe you. And then we moved on and we never really covered it again. But I love those weird, super fantastical kind of weapons and things that characters can get. And it's just like, it just works because it works. Somebody drew it and they're like, that's super awesome. Like, yes, it is. Why explain it beyond that, you know? Now, if you hand me some Blades of Ichor and you're like, okay, go fight those monsters, I'm going to give you a little bit of a side-eye look and ask you exactly how am I supposed to do that with this thing? And you better be able to explain why it works, but so long as I'm not doing that, I'm cool with it. With Angel, it was a question of like a lot of place, a lot of movement effects, a lot of different ways to get her on the board. Of course, she's got that long move to kind of help define her again further from her brother Thor and give her kind of that interesting fit within the affiliations that she's in. Separate teams. Oh, I see. There'll be more information about all of that stuff for the chat that's asking about the separate team question early next year. Simone's in there. She can maybe give you a better ETA on some of that stuff. But we've got a lot of stuff to announce, a lot of work going on. Obviously, everything that we do is going to be filled with the same love and passion and excitement that we've had the whole time we've been a studio. There's just more of us to do it. And that's been really exciting and fun too. Get to know everybody and kind of come together and figure out what ideas we share, what ideas we have different, amalgamating all that stuff together to make it really awesome and even better. All right, so we got our golds. I think we're going to call that good on the golds. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some Inktense Violet. If it comes into focus, which it won't. I'm going to grab some Inktense Blue. And I'm going to make kind of an amethysty purple wash. And then I'm going to wash my gold with it. You might be sitting there thinking like, oh, that sounds really crazy. Why would you do purple over gold? And this is a trick that I picked up from somebody. I don't remember who. It was one of the many, many painting tutorials and guides that I kind of was looking at. And they were talking about, wash your golds with purple. And you can wash your golds with browns, and that's often the way that people will do it. So you could grab some Inktense brown and mix in like a little bit of umber to it, and you get this really rich, lustrous kind of royal gold. But by using purple, what the purple does is it actually works with the yellows as a contrast, and it gives this really deep, rich luster. And so what it starts to look like is it looks like an antique gold. And I really like the way that this looks because it gives that gold that worn-in look. Like when I look at my wedding band, which I've been wearing now for almost 2 decades, and I look at that gold, you can just see there's this antique kind of luster and richness to the gold after it's worn for a lot and when it's loved and used. And it doesn't just sit on a shelf to be shiny and, get the oohs and the ahs, but it becomes this living kind of crazy thing. And the purple, because of how it interacts with the yellow in the gold, really picks that up. And it creates this really rich, kind of deep, natural gold that I really enjoy. And it's kind of become my de facto like gold. So I very often will always go towards the purple than I will to the browns anymore because I just like the effect that it gives to the gold. I like the way that it adds that kind of loved feel. And it really adds to the richness and the depth of the gold in a way that, like, browns are great, they're fine, and I think most people probably would still prefer them. But again, this is just kind of like my thing. It's a trick that I found, and I've really, really liked it, and I really like how the golds will shine up, and it makes kind of the work that I do different. And so here you go. Now you can see kind of the results and how it turns out, and maybe give it a try for yourself on some stuff. It works really great if you want like kind of a regal gold that again represents something that's been well used, worn a lot, cleaned and polished over time, but is in constant daily use. So your paladin-y armor, your king's crown, stuff like that. And it does really it doesn't work as well on golds that aren't quite as rich. So that dwarven gold's a really great one because there's a lot of yellow tint to it. Watch out for more greener golds. It doesn't work quite as well. So if you use like the peridot alchemy from scale, I'd be careful about that and give it a little test because you're going to get some weirder color variations because it's purple over green. So it might look a little more sickly. But yeah, especially on that wing, like you can just see, oh, it's so beautiful. I love it so much. just really gives you that richness and that color and that pop in a way that, browns will, but just in a different way. And so I just super like purple for my gold wash. And I use it probably 9 times out of 10 when I'm doing golds now. Just create like a nice little amethysty wash, paint over the golds, and it adds that extra bit of life. And it works really, really nice. Angela is a very fun one to paint for sure. So Simone, if you're looking for something to do tonight, I'd vote Angela. Go for it. Stick with the streams. Angela and Enchantress. Looking forward to closing out this year with y'all and moving into next year. We have some really awesome stuff coming as well. We kick off January with some Inhumans action. I'll probably spoil a little bit there, but not too much. We're working on the stream schedule for next year, and we'll be starting off January with the Inhumans, rocking through that. We did our special Thanksgiving Chef Bob, but we certainly have a whole lot of good mutant content to do, some Deadpool content to do. So the hits just keep on coming. 2021, whole new year. Same great game and community. Very excited. It's been fun watching people dissect the new formats that we presented last Tuesday. As well, I see many people who were able to got out, did some test games in the different formats. We're excited to roll more of that stuff out to you all. There's some pretty big plans overall for the year. We got some fun stuff coming, new game modes for sure. Do an unboxing of our next league, which is the next OP kit that will be coming out. We'll probably do that in January. Show everybody what to expect from our first league kit. For those of you that joined us over the Gen Con event, some of it will look familiar, some of it will look very different. But you'll be able to bring that to your stores and your local communities, and that should be really fun and exciting for everyone. It's going to be a good time. Just going to continue to build on all of the awesome stuff that happened in 2020, because despite everything, there were some really great things that happened. And I'll prefer to focus on those as we move forward, and hopefully we'll put everything behind us and everything that wasn't super great. We'll move forward to a new year and new possibilities and all that stuff. So we've had announcements in the States about several of the earliest of the 2021 conventions, and unfortunately, we're not out of the woods on those yet. So I know several have announced that, due to the safety concerns and stuff, they'll be postponing for the year or delaying. And at the end of the day, that is a bummer. We'd love to get back to life as normal. It's more important that everyone stays safe and healthy, and we all do our part to make sure that that remains that way. So I say kudos to those organizers and people for making those hard choices, and we will continue to do our best to make sure that everybody in both the MCP community and now the Star Wars communities of all these great games have a lot of opportunities to hang out, play some cool games as they're able to, provide some more opportunities for maintaining the hobbies in a safe and fun way. That will continue to be our goal going forward. So, Looking forward to it. All right. So there's our purple wash down. You can already see how we've added a whole lot of luster and life to that gold. And our details and our definitions are really popping, especially on those helmet wings. It's going well. So I think we're going to let that dry. We're going to shift over to our silvers. To get things started on the silver, we're going to start with, we'll start with thrash metal. So again, another scale color, this is thrash metal. It's a nice kind of deeper silver, and we're going to start this with thrash metal as our nice foundation. We could go black metal if we wanted to, just start really deep. And over the Zenith Prime, that might not be a bad idea, but I'm feeling saucy. I think we'll be all right. So I'm just going to dive in, and we're going to do our silvers, being careful not to go over the gold. Just hit that interior of the shoulder pad. You know, be okay with it taking a couple of coats. You saw as I went through and I was talking, I didn't really mention it, but it was about 2 to 3 coats of the gold just to get everything to be nice and solid over that base coat. So don't expect it to cover in one. You want to maintain all that detail, which means thin. More thinner coats is better. And especially if you notice you're not getting great coverage on your first pass, don't muss with it. Let it dry. And then come back over and smooth it out with your second and third coat. If you keep those coats nice and thin, you're going to have a lot of ability to smooth out any kind of brush streaks or stuff like that if your first pass isn't really smooth and even. Ooh. Or, you know, you're not showing anything on camera because you've gone way off. Those extra coats, if you keep them nice and thin, are going to let you work that out without obscuring detail, without getting gunky. Sometimes you just got to leave an area and not overwork it. I don't thin metallics nearly as much as I do other paints, for those asking in chat. I'll use a little bit of dampness just to loosen it, but typically I agree with most of the metallics that I've ever worked with are already pretty thin because they're an emulsion of that metallic flake and that adherence, you know? So you do want to be careful as they don't separate. If you're having problems with that, using a flow extender, like a matte medium, or a metallic medium, if you want to get some really good pop in there. Several companies, including Vallejo, I think, make a metallic medium, which is exactly like matte medium, you know, or the glaze medium that we use all the time. So it's an extender, but that extender has all the metallic flake in it. So you can actually use the metallic medium not only to add more luster and pop to any metallic or to any normal color, but you can also use it to extend out your silvers or your golds to some extent, although you want to be careful because it is a silver, and not lose any of that metallic luster that you might if you use like a normal flow extender, like a matte medium or stuff. So metallic medium is pretty crazy. I've not had a ton of opportunity to play with it, so I am speaking a bit from, you know, my limited experience and then what I've seen people do with it in tutorials and online and stuff. But it is definitely worth checking out. I think it's a great tool for the arsenal, and there's a lot of cool things that I know people have done with it because, again, it is just a medium, but it's got that metallic sheen to it, so you can create some pretty crazy looking colors and unique mixes with it. So like everything, I always say the more tools that you can find and play with and discover what you like, you know, the better off you're going to be with everything, because it's just going to open up a door for those experiences and stuff. All right, so we got our silvers down. We're going to do a quick wash on those. And what I like to do for my silvers is you can grab just a black, like a black ink or a black wash, of which there are many. I'm going to use the Vallejo black wash today just because I don't want to go through the process of making my own. But there are a ton of different, so this is just Game Wash black wash. It's from Vallejo. Obviously, there are all kinds of great armor washes, black washes. You can take black wash and blue wash and mix them together. And that's a really good way to do it. You can take black wash and brown wash, depending on if you want a really dingy metal. Never feel like you're stuck to just one type. You know, mixing and matching those colors will give you all kinds of options. So I'm just going to take, and I find that this black wash is a little thick for what I want, so I'm going to take a little bit of water. And I'm just going to extend it out. And then we're just going to wash it over our silvers. Kind of letting it be sure to pool in those cracks and crevices between the armor. There's that nice differentiation between the plates. Because we're going to go back through and we'll highlight those silvers up and those golds up here in a second. I'm not too worried if we get a little dark. You just want to be careful about pooling. If you get really heavy pools of wash, it will affect how easy it is to go back over and get a nice highlight and stuff, like right here in the corner. You see right here, you can see where it's really shiny, and that's a really thick pool of wash, so it's going to behoove me to just go back in with my cleaner brush and kind of absorb some of that and spread it back out. And it's kind of the same over here. So it's all about finding that right balance where you want that wash to like really define those highlights. And maybe you want it to be thicker. Maybe you're going for a more comic styling. So those thicker, stronger lines are a little more in line with what you want. I'm trying to avoid having too much of a pool going on right there though. I just want this to be kind of like subtle and not super thick. So I can play with that. Looks like you might want to do an extra bit on the arms just to make sure that they get those nice differentiation lines. But this part will be pretty quick because there's not as much silver as there is gold. Go. That was the sword really quick. So I'm just doing a really even coat over the sword. It's almost like a glaze, letting it pool where it's going to pool, and then I'll just go back through and through highlighting. I'll kind of bring that back up. All right. So there we go. We got all of our silvers now. We have on there nice and washed. I think I noticed that I want to come back on the back of this. I'm just going to give it a bit more purple wash. So I think that could be a little darker. And we'll just do this foot last. Okay. So at this point, you could say, I'm completely happy. I'm stopping here. And that would be totally acceptable. You see, we've got some really nice detail. All of those different armor plates are nice and separated. We still have some highlights and some normal and some shades, and all of the light is playing with us really nice off of these metallics. They're really nice and lustery. But let's go ahead and go to our next step, which is to go back and we're going to highlight those golds back up again. So to do that, I'm going to take some Dwarven Gold and I'm going to grab some Elven gold, I think, which is a lot lighter. And I'm going to do about 1 part Dwarven to 2 parts Elven and just see where that gets me, because I do want this to be brighter. And then what we'll do is we'll take that mix and we'll add some of this citrine alchemy, which is really, really bright. And we'll start using that, and then we'll just go to pure citrine alchemy for the end, provided we have enough time to get there. So, get an idea of the color that I'm shooting for here. So I'm using that Dwarven Gold as the base just to tie these colors together, because while they could work in highlight stages by themselves, there's enough difference that I kind of want to blend those colors together. I want them to feel a bit more tied, because I am going to be leaning on a lot. So there's my thumb, and there's my color that I've mixed up. So you can see when we put it next to that, how it's got this nice highlight to it. I'm just going to go through and we're just going to 2-brush blend this as we need to. I'm just looking for those raised areas. And obviously, if you want to get really, really into how metallics like shine and stuff, they do some weird things. It's really important to keep like some really dark edges. You know, metallics are actually completely dull when there's no light on them. And this is all part of the true metallic like stuff. So even if you're not interested in painting true metallic, like kind of examining how that effect is achieved, how a non-metallic metal effect is made, can be really helpful. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to approach this the exact same way I would approach anything. So I'm looking for those spots of like really bright kind of highs, and I'm just going to like blend in that higher gold. And I'm just leaving the shadows in to add that depth of color. Because it's reflection, you can be a little messier. You don't have to be quite as clean as you might be on other things. And it will actually help your metallics feel a little more natural. This is the point where you're just going to play and feel it out. And if you do something you don't like, grab that blender brush and just wipe it away or blend it back in a little bit. I lost a bit of my shadow I liked there, so just went through. Keeping a consistent pattern, like stroke pattern, will also help, because metallics, you know, when they're really stylized, they get those like lines going on. So I always try to come in from the same direction as I'm building up my lines if I'm doing something like a bigger, broader surface, as opposed to, say, just these little raised edges. You can do a little stipling where you just come in and add little dots of zings. That's really good for your citrine, like pure color. You know, anywhere where that light is just going to like zing off of it, come in and hit it. Whoop. Make sure that's on camera when you hit it. That's always good, you know. It's helpful. And it doesn't take, kind of like what we talk about when painting white, it doesn't take a lot of highlight to really start to bring that metallosity out and really make these things pop. So less is typically more when it comes to highlighting your metals. Like your base and your wash should be doing most of the work, and you just want to come in and just accentuate, give it that little extra bit of build. Now I'm on my bad side, so I'll probably make at least one mistake. I'll have to clean up, blend out. So coming across the mini. Yeah, for those asking, we did a purple wash over the gold. We did a normal black wash over the silver, but you could have washed anything over the silver, blue, red. Silver is a really fun color to play with. You can do a lot of stuff with it. Now we get really quiet because we're in that part of the video where it's just like, ooh, we're arting now. We're arting. This is the fun part. This is the zen part of every paint session where you just kind of like get to that point where you get in there and you're like, okay, I'm feeling it now. We're here and we're ready to go. And now's the point where I kind of check the time and I go, oh, did I go too far? Nope. Just coming back through. I get over here on the little hilt. Here. All right. Just thinking we can leave those alone. Just coming back through. Okay. Let's grab that citrine. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll come back through with the citrine and we'll do another layer. We'll start to like really give it some pop. So citrine alchemy, super, super light. It's a great final kind of highlight color for golds. I really like it. It's also great to mix in, just to brighten up. And this color, just like the last one, which we used pretty sparingly, this one's going to be even more sparing. And then I think our last step of this process will be to just use a little dot of silver on a couple of spots just to really make that glisten feel real good. So, kind of example of where we're going to next. So there, get out of there. It is on my thumb. So there's our highlights. You can see it's almost a silver, especially on the camera. So that's where we're going to next. Come in, and again, this one's going to be even more limited in its scope and application. We're probably going to rely a bit more on that blendy brush. So just looking those places that we really want that super upper zing of light to come in on. Right there where the ribs are. I get this nice definition on that chest piece. Coming in on these wings, definitely hitting the very tips of those. And that's where we want to put kind of like our silver too at the end on this headpiece. It's not a lot, it's just a little bit. Like on this, just want to go like right there. We'll just kind of mirror that placement down so it looks like the light is just hitting right there and zinging in. And we can come over here on this wing. Just build up on the tips. Just a little bit on the edges. Just a little bit on the, and I'm using, so to get those edges so I'm not like meshing it in, I'm just using the very edge of the brush, the flat of the brush, and I'm just very lightly like pushing and pulling over. And so it's almost like a dry brush, except my brush isn't dry. And those wings are defined enough that you're going to pick that up. You're just going to pick up those edges just fine, and it's going to be great. And that's what we want. We'll come in here, we'll zing in that, zing in that. I'm going to do a little dot of it on the interiors. And I really like painting gold. It's such a fun color, and it's got such a life to it. I don't like silvers all that much. I gotta be honest. I'm not much of a silver guy, but golds really, they excite me. I like all of it as gold, I guess. You just got that richness, that life to it. Just feels good as you paint it. So warm and lush, you know. Silver is such a cold and austere color. But gold, it's like a nice fire on a winter day. All right, so we got those going on. We'll come down here, kind of get the tip of the toe. So we know we want the light to zing off that. A couple parts of these, but for the most part, we know that those are going to be in darkness and shadow, because if we look, that leg is really bent back. So we don't want to do too much highlighting here. Also because, most people aren't going to see that part. So we don't need to waste a lot of our time there. That foot definitely sticks out though, so give that foot a little extra shot of color. Come back over here. That. Get right there. Back in. That. Come over here. Give us a little zing right there. Come over these wings, and again, this is the trouble side, because as before I was going against the grain, now I have to go with it. So just have to be a little careful and know that when I do something like that, I can grab my other brush and I can blend out my mistake where I got a little too heavy. That. Come over to this side, just give this a little pop, not much of one. Pop there. Right here. A little too heavy, so let's go with the blend brush. Come back to our back foot here. You'll see we haven't spent as much time. Because we're not as worried about that, but we'll give a little bit of sheen, especially on that heel. Get that going on. Sweet. Sweet. Blend that in just a little bit. That. Let's see where the light goes. One of the fun things about metals too is that their natural luster will tell you where to like accentuate. So we can see the light really likes hitting along the edge of that. So we'll just give it that extra help. So now we got some really looking sharp golds, really popping. Really, really good. I'm really, really happy with all this. Super thrilled. Actually, I could do this for another hour, but we all have things we must do. So, with our 5 minutes left, let's go ahead. We're going to grab speed metal. which is like the brightest of silvers that I have access to at this point. I'm going to mix in a little bit of my citrine gold mix just to give it a little bit more of a tint. But I want this to be pretty darn close to pure silver. So I'll give you an example of what we're working with so you can see where our other gold was. So you can see how white that is compared to our mid color. And again, this is just for some little dots. So we're just going to come in and do a little dot on those very points. If you use too much of this, you're going to lose that gold, but just the right amount is actually going to make it feel more like gold. So it's a very fine balance. If you ever go too much, you can always scrub it back out. But this just kind of represents the light source reflecting completely off of your metal. So you think about like when the sun is overhead and it hits that shining gold or that shining steel. This is the reflection of that sun. So it's just the lightest touches. So you can see that super spotty dot. You can really feel where that light source is and where it's coming from. And something a little broader like this sword, or these blades of ichor, excuse me, not the sword. Just want to blend it out just a little bit and give yourself a couple different places for it. Especially along where those ridges are most prominent. Think about your old like robot animation shows you loved and how they'd get that zing running down the barrel of a weapon or a sword. You hear that shing. That's what you're doing right now. You're doing that with paint. Give them that shing point. A little starburst action. Okay, this. Yeah, you did enter the room at the wrong point if you just showed up. We're in the zone now. This is the moment. This is the moment of meditation and thought, relaxation. Just want this thing right there. I'll come over here, do a little zing like right there. Oh, that looks so good. We're so excited. Best day ever. All right, and then last but not least, we want to hit those wingtips. Just gonna come in hit those. Hit right here. We'll come over, do a little bit there. Flip it over. Just do a little bit right there. That back out because we lost some of our shadow. All right. Okay. And it's 2:01, which means we finished mostly right on the nose with these golds. So there you are. There's my process for doing golds for Angela, starting with a solid gold base coat using a purple wash or an amethyst wash to shade down, and then using a whole bunch of golds, starting with Dwarven, moving up to Elven, going to Citrine, and then finally using a last little dash of speed metal to create a really lustrous gold worthy of Angela Odin's daughter. So I hope you all had fun hanging out. I really enjoyed spending my time with you. I hope you found some techniques or something fun new to try. Of course, be excited for Angela, Enchantress, and She-Hulk. All those fine ladies of power will be coming out next month. Be sure to check in with Dallas Kemp on Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. He will be painting not a She-Hulk, but an Angela as well. We'll see what he does with all this crazy stuff going on with his Angela and where he takes her next. Maybe he'll do something that's inspired from her time as the Queen of Niflheim, or maybe he'll do something a little more traditional. You can never tell. Obviously, metals are his favorite thing. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to see, be sure to hit us up on all the social medias. We, of course, are posting more and more content there. We have a few more things to go before the end of the year when we all take holiday break. And we'll be excited to come back bigger and better for the start of the new year, 2021. Hope you all have had a chance to check out the new formats for MCP. If you haven't, be sure to go to our website. On the rules section, you'll find the rules for arena and party formats. The collector party format, which allows you to play a cool old school card draft with your characters. And then, of course, the battle realm format, which is a pick ban system for playing normal games of Crisis Protocol. If you and your opponents would like to do that, adds a whole level of extra strategy to roster building and construction. And of course, the ultimate encounters as you're hanging out with your family. If you want to play an ultimate encounter, we have the Hulk ultimate encounter and the Ultron ultimate encounter for free on our website. You can also play a great game of AI-controlled Ultron with your friends and families, maybe some cousins, nieces, and nephews, if you have the chance to hang out with them over the holidays, depending on what your plans are and how you're doing with the pandemic. Otherwise, be sure to stay safe, stay connected, reach out to everybody. We enjoy seeing all of the awesome paint jobs that are inspired us to do even better and more crazy things. Until then, folks, I will see you all on the next one next Tuesday. Until then, be safe, have fun, and be heroes. Goodbye.